Success comes from thinking of every customer as if they're the only customer. I used to talk about it on the agency world of putting a brand on the brain of a consumer. It's not putting a brand on the brain, it's putting a brand on the heart of a consumer. To be able to be a brand that has NPS scores in the mid to upper 70s and still be looking at the experience to figure out what we can be doing a better job of is why I know we're going to win, is the true hallmark of a challenger brand, is through that mentality of invention, acceleration, not just copy, rinse, and repeat.
In today's world, how does a brand break through the noise and become iconic? Join me, Jason Harris, as I speak with the world's leading marketing experts about how they use soul and science to build an iconic brand. Think of it as EQ meeting IQ. So let's lock in and together fast forward our marketing minds on the Soul and Science podcast. Welcome back to the Soul and Science podcast. Today I'm joined by Doug Zarkin, an award-winning marketer known for breathing new life into some of the world's most iconic brands. From Victoria's Secret Pink to Pearle Vision, Doug has a gift for turning legacy brands into modern leaders by blending emotional storytelling with sharp business strategy. In this episode, we'll explore the soul and science of brand reinvention and what it really takes to make a brand not just relevant again, but impossible to ignore. Welcome to the podcast, Doug Zarkin.
What's up, Jason? Does Ryan Seacrest know you're stealing his radio voice, or?
Yeah, I do have a radio voice. It's just happens. I can't stop it.
It's all good. Use weather and sports at the 9. It's all good.
Weather and sports at the 9. All right, Doug, tell me your origin story, how you got into marketing.
Yeah.
Did you study marketing? Did you fall into it?
It is interesting. I would like to tell you that it was part of a master plan, but so I went, graduated undergrad from GW and started my MBA and JD at American University. I graduated on Sunday, started on Monday morning. So I was the idiot in the back of the grad school class wearing my fraternity letters. I was probably 10 or 15 years younger than everybody in my class. And very quickly, with my first semester of law school electives, realized that I didn't want to be an attorney. I knew I wanted to run a business and eventually, lead a brand, but I had no idea how to do it. And so when I graduated grad school, I plowed through my MBA in about 13 months. I lived in a land before LinkedIn, if you can believe it, when I graduated. And so the best way that you figured out what you wanted to do is you talk to friends and family, and somebody gave me some really good advice and said, look, Doug, if you want to eventually drive the train, get on at the end and work your way to the front. Because by the time you get to the front of the train, you will have done all the roles and functions. You'll understand the roles and functions. You'll speak the language of those roles and functions. But most importantly, you'll understand what it takes to motivate the people that are in those roles and functions. And so first career was a decade in the agency business, media, account management. Eventually, I ran the youth and entertainment division of, at the time, the largest private agency in the world. And then did what most young men in their late 20s do. I became an Avon lady and went over to Avon Products to be their founding director of marketing for a soon-to-be named business, Mark, the makeup you can buy and sell. Took that business to about 118 million in 18 months, and then was recruited out by my friends at Limited to do the same thing at Pink, which I had the chance to work at and help bring that brand national. Spent a few more years in the fast fashion world, and eventually spent the bulk of my client side experience at SLO Luxottica, where for 11 years I led the transformation and evolution of Pearle Vision from a retail focused into the premier healthcare services brand on Entrepreneur's 500 list. And then about less than 6 months ago, came over to Driven Brands, where I'm excited to take on a new role as their CMO for their Take 5 oil change business.
Pearle Vision, that's really an interesting shift you had to make in that business model.
Yeah.
How do you kind of run an existing business that has like millions and millions in revenue that you can't give up while transforming the business into something else?
Well, it was really getting back to the roots of Pearle. The retail business is essentially where we made our money, but where we earned trust was truly in the eye care side of the business. And so as I joined the business and kind of looked at where the brand was. Not to shamelessly plug my book, but the brand was really stuck in the friend zone. It had a moderate degree of passion and a moderate degree of trust. And part of that was because it had self-inflicted, 2 decades of buy one, get one free, a real disregard for the heritage of the business, which the brand was founded by a doctor, Stanley Pearle. And that commitment to caring about the person behind the eyes began in the exam lane and translated onto the retail floor. And so really what I did was kind of take the brand back to its roots and leaned into its differentiation, which is that neighborhood eye care. The iconic jingle tagline, nobody cares for eyes more than Pearl. It was really substantiating what that meant in the hearts and minds of consumers. And that allowed us to reduce discounting, really focus on patient acquisition as a growth driver of the retail side of the business. And the results were a pretty strong strategic transformation of that brand from a discount eyewear focused business to a brand that focused on a commitment to care. Consumers, whether you're making $5, $50, $500, or $5 million a year, everybody wants brand value. And brand value is a very simple equation. It is the experience you receive divided by the price that you pay. And for Pearl, the key was really double downing on the experience. Ensuring strong chairside manner, ensure that we treated every customer as if they were the only customer. Really focusing on patience and ensuring that that customer felt more like a patient through an elevated level of care from the exam room to the retail floor. And I'm super proud of the work that we did there to really revitalize and accelerate the growth of that business.
Tell me more about moving your brand out of the friend zone. I know you have a book,
Yep.
and then you kind of threw that out as your sort of like catchphrase. Tell me what that means to you.
So, business is all about relationships, and so I love using the relationship analogy. So, I've been married for almost 23 years, and
Congratulations.
perhaps, thank you, perhaps, just perhaps, when I was single, there may have been a time that I had feelings for somebody and let them know it, and they didn't have the same intensity of feelings for me. And that's when you get put into the friend zone, or as I like to call it, the relationship version of the Heisman Trophy. You go in for that kiss, and it's like, whoa, wait a minute, I don't feel the same way about you.
I've been friend zoned so many times. It's not even funny.
The reality is brands live in the friend zone, and they don't know it till they're there. And the way that they know it is when they see their relationship with their existing customers dwindle. If you've ever received one of those clawback emails, it's been 6 months since we saw you, it's been a year since we saw you. That's when you know you have a friendship with your consumer. They don't hate you. It's not that they distrust you, but they're not passionate about you. They may have found a bigger or better deal. And so the goal is to try to move brands out of the friend zone and into that haloed place that I call brand love. The challenge with brand love is when you have that high degree of passion and that high degree of trust, is the hardest part isn't getting there, it's staying there. And that's really where the humility has to be paired with the arrogance, to ensure that you are listening to your consumer, always evolving in order to lead them to where you want them to go, which is to your retail, service, or other destination of your choice.
So you have to create better, more engaging experiences.
Yep. You've got to really invest in your experience in order to, and let me give you an analogy. It's pretty easy. So if you've ever been blessed to stay at a Ritz-Carlton or a Four Seasons or a St. Regis, the rooms are $4, $5, $6, $7, maybe even $1,000 a night. But you walk in to the hotel, they hand you a bottle of water, you get up to the desk, immediately they address you by name. You never see your bags. They show up in your room. 10 minutes after you get to your room, the phone rings. Hey, do you need extra pillows, extra towels, extra hangers? You get to the pool the next morning, and there's a chair there waiting for you with a beautiful towel, and somebody's handing you a cold face cloth. All of those amenities drive up the experience. So while you're there, and even post-purchase, post-vacation, you're not thinking about what you paid. You're thinking of, wow, I had an amazing time. Now let's fast forward to staying in a business hotel. Okay, pick one. You walk in, your room isn't ready. Okay, if your room is ready, you go upstairs and it smells like stale meat and cheese. Okay, you can't turn the heater on to get to the right temperature. You go to take a shower and towels are rough and maybe the bar of soap is the size of a note card. And then you go to log on Wi-Fi and it's slow and terrible. You may be only paying $99, but man, are you on fire. The delta between your experience and your price is what allows you to go from brand like into brand love.
How do you go into a company and rally the troops and the employees that maybe have been there for 10, 15 years? They've worked a certain way. They're used to treating clients in the friend zone, doing not the bare minimum, but doing just enough, but not having that extraordinary experience. How do you rally those people to think of the brand differently and think of the customer differently in a new light?
First of all, you cannot do it alone. Part of what attracted me to Take Five was the humility and passion of our operations team. Marketing without operations is just stuff. And as I was learning the business, and even when I was at Pearle Vision, I had a phenomenal operations team. The proof comes in the profitability. You look at NPS score, you look at Google Star scores, you look at your retention rate. The data can help paint the picture of whether you are in brand love, brand like, or in the friend zone. My job as the CMO or chief brand officer or whatever the title is to really be the chief brand evangelist, to really be in a position to crystallize the intersection between the brand truths, what we stand for, the human truths, what they believe, and that intersection is where marketing comes to life. I used to talk about it when I was in the agency world of putting a brand on the brain of a consumer. It's not putting a brand on the brain, it's putting a brand on the heart of a consumer, because consumers make emotional decisions before they make rational choices. And so I have to stimulate you to feel something about my brand before I can expect you to do something with my brand.
The first thing you need as the brand evangelist, the first thing you need to do before you can do that for the audience is to do that for your internal workforce.
Well, you're going to do that for yourself. Despite, with the exception of something that plugs in vis-a-vis a USB or a USC, I am probably the least handy guy you'll ever meet. I had the chance when I first joined Take Five to actually work in the pit, to get trained as a tech. When I was at Pearle Vision, I learned how to be an optician. When I was at Avon, I spent 6 weeks as an Avon lady. You learn the business from the ground up. The most important tool that any marketer has in their toolbox is a frontline associate. And in our case, our techs are in living 3D living embodiments of our brand. You begin to see the special sauce, or in our case, I call it the symphony of sound that happens inside every shop. If you've ever been to the stock exchange or you've been to the fish market, you don't understand a single word that's going on, but you know that they know what they're doing. And when you walk into a Take Five, the communication is such a big part of what makes us special. And because you're staying in your car, it's very much like an open kitchen concept. You see it, you feel it, you believe it. You're not just expecting that your oil is going to be changed. You actually are a part of the experience to the degree that you want to be involved. No, we're not going to ask you to change the oil yourself, but you hear it. You see the techs working. And so you have that degree of confidence to know that the work was done and that you were brought through the journey, guided through it, not just handed a sheet of paper and being like, yep, you're all done.
Is that part of your thinking human philosophy?
Thinking human at the core is treating every customer as if they are the only customer that's coming in that day. And, imagine a world if every friend in your phone treated you as if you were their best friend. No excuses, no delays, drop everything. The ultimate customer experience is one that prioritizes you as the human being, not you the transaction. We have all found ourselves on our cell phone screaming representative into the phone, or pounding on the numbers to get to a human being. Those are brands that don't necessarily take the time to appreciate that when a consumer has a question, they don't want to answer it virtually. They want to talk to somebody. It's also a missed opportunity to show the personalization that has become such a part of today's vernacular by actually getting a live human being on the phone And for us, it's about refining it and ensuring that we're delivering it consistency, which is always an opportunity. The humility of our ops team to be able to be a brand that has NPS scores in the mid to upper 70s and still be looking at the experience to figure out what we could be doing a better job of is why I know we're going to win, is the true hallmark of a challenger brand. We aren't thinking about being just better than Jiffy Lube or Valvoline or Walmart. We are thinking about being the best we can for our consumers. And that is how we are going to assume the first place position, is through that mentality of invention, acceleration, not just copy, rinse, and repeat.
What do you think makes you particularly good at your job? What is Doug
Wow.
Zarkin very, very good at that maybe other people aren't as good as? And I know it takes a village and a team, but
Yeah.
what do you think, if you can brag about yourself for a minute, what do you think you're good at?
So I think I index pretty high on the passionate driver scale from a leadership perspective. I love what I do. It's a big part of who I am as a person. And I'd like to think passion is contagious. And so in building a team, I really talk about it in terms of casting a team. Not everybody can get the ball on every play. And so you are building a complementary skill set of leaders, doers, thinkers, players, and coaches. I think if I have a superpower, it's being able to connect the dots pretty quickly. Um, I'm pretty good at seeing kind of how quant lines up and creates a story. Um, and that allows me to kind of figure through some unlocks. But, you said it, as I look to build a team, as I look to, work with external partners, my goal, honestly, and please don't take this out of context. I know it'll make for a great meme, but my goal, honestly, is to put myself in the room where I am the dumbest person in the room. Because if I'm the smartest person in the room, I don't need to be in the room. And, the partners that I'm choosing to work with, the team that I'm building, it's really about surrounding myself with functional expertise that all contribute, that make me a better leader. I also know that I am a work in progress as a leader. I am constantly working on how I lead, how I adjust my leadership. In my 20s and 30s, I sort of thought there was a one size fits all to leadership. And as I've matured in my career, I realized there isn't. There are certain things that matter to me that are non-negotiables. The how is as important to me as the what. The two most powerful words in the English language are thank you. It is okay to be requiring, providing that you are requiring of yourself. Um, those are all at the core of who I am. And for some people, they love it. For others, they may not. But it served me well, so I'm going to continue to bank on it.
What do you look for in a brand? Like, you're recently at Take Five. What do you look for to say that that's a right fit for you and that's a place that could use your skills?
It's, do they have a DNA that sort of speaks to the notion of thinking human? Do they really look at the consumer as merely a transaction or an opportunity to truly earn trust? And look, I don't want you to think that my goal is to make an oil change the same degree of empathy as you would when you're going to see an eye doctor. But the root of putting the consumer at the center of the model, at Pearle, it was caring about the person behind the eyes. At Take Five, it's really understanding that oil change is what we do, but we deliver so much more for that consumer. I mean, think about the expenses in your life, where you spend your time. A car is pretty damn important. And unfortunately, that oil light going off, you can kick the can down the road, but it is an eventuality. And so we are doing more than just changing someone's oil. We're actually restoring the confidence they have in something they need to live the life they love. And that's pretty damn powerful.
Do you look for in the companies you work, how can I help this brand and how can I bring thinking human into this organization? Or do you look for brands that already think human that match your values?
Both, to me, I was so attracted by Take Five, not just for the business that it is. I mean, we're well over $1 billion, nearly 1,300 locations, and we're just getting started. I think we just announced earnings I believe it's the 18th consecutive quarter of growth.
That's incredible.
But what really drew me to the brand, honestly, was the interview process. Um, it was very quick. It was very decisive. It was very focused on me, the person, not just me, the marketer. And it was pretty intoxicating.
When you assess whether a brand transformation is working, what are some of the metrics that you measure to assess whether it's working or not?
Well, look, as much as marketers like to do pretty things that people talk about, the role of marketing is to motivate the consumer to do what we need them or want them to do when we want them or need them to do it. So the ultimate barometer of whether or not what you are doing is working is going to be your P&L, is going to be your sales, is going to be your traffic. You also are measuring quantitatively things like brand health, awareness, consideration, educated brand awareness, familiarity.
Sometimes wouldn't it be if you're spending extra time or you're humanizing, not automating the customer service chain, wouldn't sometimes there be a higher cost, more operational cost, less profit at first if you're transforming a brand or making a brand more human?
Certainly. I mean, certainly, that's where you are, depends where you are in your life cycle. Take Five is a wildly successful brand that I have the privilege of helping to fuel their growth. This is not a turnaround story. This is an acceleration story. This is the brand has matured and our marketing needs to mature with it. Marketing a brand that is 500 locations is different than marketing a business that is growing between 100 and 200 locations per annum and is 1,300 locations and is a top 20% brand on Entrepreneur's 500 list. So this business requires an elevated approach to marketing to meet the market conditions that we now find themselves in. Certainly there are investments. You've got to be smart with those investments. You've got to be able to see a trajectory. I would expect if we deliver a better experience, our NPS scores are going to go up, our Google star scores are going to go up, our average repair order is going to go up. That will impact our ability to get retention. Okay, so there's always ways within the P&L to measure your progress or lack thereof, but certainly a fair point that in aggregate, certain things may go down. When we went off BOGO, we actually we made more money by selling less product. We weren't giving one unit away for every unit we sold. We were just selling one unit at greater margin. So it was less about multiples and it was more about single pair, but our reputation was increasing enough that we were getting new customers and new patients. Our retention rate was stronger. Our NPS and our Google star score was stronger. So we knew we were on the right track.
What's advice you would give CMOs or CBOs who are trying to modernize or change their brand or get their brand to be more customer centric, but they might be facing internal resistance?
There's an old expression somebody I used to work with said to me, sum of marginal gains. Pick a few strategic bets that you think can reflect in a deeper, stronger experience and see if you can get marginal improvements in all of them. The sum of marginal gains will lead to a big improvement.
Oh, right. That's really interesting.
Don't swing for the fences on something. And I mean, it's reckless to swing for the fences.
You've worked in different industries, fashion, beauty, retail, healthcare. What would you say is universal about your work in those industries? And then maybe what are some nuances?
It's a great question. I think the universality of my approach is really the notion of thinking human. I wasn't able to articulate it early in my career until I wrote my book, which I wrote when I left Pearle Vision in the summer of 2023. But this notion of success comes from thinking of every customer as if they're the only customer. I think the through line, when you look at the work that I did in launching Avon's Young Women's Upscale Business Mark to helping Pink evolve from a test market into a national brand to obviously the work that I did at Pearle, is this notion of trying to build marketing that showcases that we're treating every customer as if they're the only customer.
Do you have a story that you want to share or a lesson that you want to share where maybe it didn't go as planned?
Sure. Out of respect for the business, I won't mention the business's name, but what I will say is that it is very hard to have a rational conversation with an emotional person. And in the world of franchising in particular, you are dealing with folks that it's their business. So naturally, they're very emotional. In one of my roles, we were trying to shift from unmeasurable to measurable, from a single channel strategy into a more modern strategy, not just a ton of television, but moving to a more modern marketing approach. And the data was there to support that evolution made sense. The target audience assessment, media utilization. I mean, you couldn't have breadcrumbed it any clearer, but I just couldn't get them to believe. I couldn't get them to believe and leave fear behind and talk about opportunity. It was, my business is going okay. If I change this, it's going to go backwards. And it's going okay, but it's not going what it could be. There just was such a reluctancy to embrace new thinking, even though there was a challenge to bring new thinking. I just couldn't get them over the hump of, it's my money, so it's my decision. And, that was disappointing. It's also disappointing when you expect something to be a panacea for a business, and there is no such thing as a panacea for a business. Consumers have life cycles. If your consumer is buying you once in a lifetime or once a year, that transition is going to take more than 2 months. To your point, you may have to take 2 steps backwards to take 3 steps forwards. And I think in that case, just I didn't have the emotional buy-in, which prevented any kind of intellectual conversation to happen.
With Take Five, how do you balance the speed message with also the trust or the experience message?
Speed's a cost of entry. I mean, unless you're the automotive dealer where, you go and you sit in that waiting room drinking really bad coffee, watching some news show that 50% of the people in the waiting room probably think is offensive, and you lose 2 hours of your day if you're lucky. I think the specialness of Take Five is that we deliver speed consistently at scale. That's wonderful. That's a strategic advantage, but that is not the only reason why people come. It's an expectation of coming. It's the other things that make it special, that make us unique. Jiffy Lube is fast. Valvoline is fast. Walmart is fast. Fast alone isn't going to get it. It's what is the experience that you're delivering? What are the intangibles? Hospitality is a very big part of the Take Five experience. Before you even pull into the bay, before you're even a paying customer, the first thing we do is we walk out and we greet you with a smile and a water. And it seems really silly, and I didn't understand it when it was explained to me until I watched it. That exchange of a very simple gesture, a little bottle of water, not only does the window come down literally, but the window comes down emotionally. You all of a sudden have extended an olive branch to start to create a connection point with that person sitting in the passenger seat.
I love that. That's so smart.
Simple. It's no different than, walking into your favorite restaurant, and before you even get to the hostess desk, you got a big smile. So great to see you again. Just special.
How do you think of your media mix? I don't pretend to know how the business operates, but I'm sure a lot of it is either repeat business, this is the place I go, or it's proximity based, which is why you have so many locations. How do you bring in the customer?
Oh, if I told you that, I'd have to kill you.
All right, don't tell me that.
Here's what I'll say without being cute. It's an oil change. How far are you willing to drive to get your oil changed? We're not curing cancer. Okay. We're not serving the best pizza in 7 counties. It's an oil change. It's a commodity. So in a commoditized category, how do you win? That's how we're going to win. We're going to deliver the best possible experience that you can imagine. We're going to overshoot the landing in terms of what you think an experience of getting your oil change is. And we're going to deliver it for you at a fair and reasonable price. Our goal is to not be the cheapest. Cheapest don't win. Nobody beats Walmart at cheap. That's Walmart. Walmart's cheap. You're not going to win by trying to be the cheapest. It also just sends a terrible message. Why are you devaluing the skill and precision and time it takes and the training that our techs go through by trying to be the fastest to the bottom? Doesn't make any sense. That's wonderful in an ethereal perspective, but you got to have the meat and potatoes to back it up. And that's really where the experience comes in. It's wonderful to take the time to be comprehensive, but you got to deliver a great experience so the consumer sees it and feels it.
What marketing initiatives are coming up for you that you're really excited about?
I'm really excited for 26 planning. I've got a really comprehensive team now in place to help us win and win in every community in which there is a Take 5 oil change shop. I think our approach to winning is really focused on the notion of thinking human. We're going to do it with precision. We're going to do it with purpose. There is not one single initiative that I can pinpoint for you, Jason, as much as I'd like and say, this is how we're going to win. It's not that. It's the sum of all parts. It's the understanding that marketing isn't about upper, middle, or lower funnel anymore. Marketing is a subway map. And so every channel is being looked at, and creative is going to be designed specifically for every channel. So that if we're speaking to a younger consumer in a TikTok or an Instagram, our messaging is going to look like it's a derivative of the same parents, but may not look exactly like the same message that goes to the more mature consumer. And that's the kind of curation of our message that I'm excited to be able to bring to the business. And that I think our teams are really amped up to deliver for 26.
What would you say the best part of your job is, and what is the hardest part of your job?
Wow. Best part of my job is people. Hardest part of my job is people. And it's true. It does take a village. I know it's cliche, but dude, it is so true. If you do not surround yourself with a winning team, you can't call the play, throw the ball, block, catch the ball, block downfield, and score. The people part of the business, if you work backwards from profitability, at the start of it is people who build the process to evaluate the progress that drives profitability. The most amount of time I spend is on people. The most amount of time I spend should always be on what I call the, so what does the data mean? Now, what do you do? Having the right people in place allows me to focus more on the so what, now what, than just worrying about the what. Those are the things that get me excited and that keep me up at night. Am I creating a culture as a leader where people want to do the right thing when nobody's looking, that take the business personally, that think about it as their money, not just some large bucket of cash that they get to play with? How do I make the business personal, and how do I lead personally? Do I know my team? Do I know what and how to elevate them? Can I be the kind of leader that provides real-time feedback, both positive and negative? And is this team prepared for it? And do they want it? Feedback is a gift, but like gifts, sometimes you don't want the gift and you return it. So, not to be quip about it, but it really does come down to people.
What advice would you give younger Doug?
First of all, the suspenders, shirt and tie look, it was great for a moment, but I think you stayed with it way too long in your career, buddy.
Was that your look?
Yeah, I was the Wall Street looking guy working at an ad agency for a really long time.
I kind of love that.
Very Gordon Gekko, Bud Fox for a long time until business casual came along. My younger Doug, I would really give the advice I talked about earlier. Stop stressing about figuring out the right way and worrying about the wrong way. Just do a way, because that's all there is. There's a way, and it is not the same in every business. It's not going to be the same for everybody. So just make your path and go for it.
If you had to write a second book, what would it be called?
I don't know what it would be called, but I can tell you what it would be about.
Okay. Perfect. What's
so, what I am so grateful for LLMs, ChatGPT is that ChatGPT is a great way to kind of just get it out in all the color and off color ways that you want to say something and have it come back to you in a professional, not going to get you fired kind of way. And so what I would love to do is have a book of, on the left page was the email that I really wanted to write. And I think you know what I mean. We've all had those moments where you just want to fire off an email. And then here's how calmer heads prevailed with a little help from ChatGPT to curate my message in my voice in a professional way to get the same, maybe you suck message, or it's not working, or you're lazy, or whatever the emotion is, in a way that is productive and constructive. I think all of us as leaders benefit from breathing before sending off a fiery email. And I will tell you, ChatGPT for me has become a godsend in helping me curate having difficult conversations about difficult topics in a way that still allows me to represent what I want to say in the most professional, productive, and constructive way possible.
Do you have a mantra or a quote that you live by?
I do. I think the most prolific life coach that has ever lived and that ever will live is a gentleman by the name of Dr. Seuss.
I've heard of him.
There is a quote that means very much to me, both in my life and in my personal life and my professional life. And for abbreviation purposes, it's, oh, the things you can think if only you try. I love figuring things out. To me, you put the effort in, the outcome is successful, whether you are or aren't. And so that's something that's really at the heart of who I am as a person, as a leader, as a husband, as a father, and as a marketer.
I love that. Doug, how can people reach out to you or find your book?
Yeah, please buy the book. For every book I sell, I think I make the equivalent of a cup of Starbucks. So the book is available, Moving Your Brand on the Friend Zone, on Amazon and paperback and Kindle. You can find me on LinkedIn at Doug Zarkin, or you can find my website, dougzarkin.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom on the pod today and
Thanks,
spending
bud.
time with us. Our listeners appreciate it.
I appreciate it.
Soul and Science is a Mechanism podcast produced by Maggie Bowles, Ryan Tillotson, and Lily Jablonski. The show is edited by Daniel Ferreira with theme music by Kyle Merritt. And I'm your host, Jason Harris.